Okay, since the Walk Part 2 is taking longer to script, record, and edit than I thought, here's a new series I wanted to make, and it is my top 5 moments from each arc in Bleach. I'll be updating it when I can. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to be updating it. I'll probably new video every 2 weeks or so. But I'm hoping to get out all the arcs done by the time Thousand Year Blood War comes out. And the first arc, of course, is going to be Substitute Shinigami Arc, which is a pretty underrated arc in Bleach, in my opinion. I'm working on a full video, moments in it that are impactful for Ichigo's character, and overall just why the arc is underrated. Most people don't like it, and I'm going to highlight moments from this arc that I really underrate in my opinion, so I guess let's start off with number 5. Number 5, Ichigo getting his powers. The scene that started it all, Ichigo breaking through Rukia's Kido, wanting to protect his sisters to the point to where he would sacrifice his own life for them. At the start of the series, Ichigo has a weird hero complex because he helps a ghost at the start of the series and helps it make peace. And we see this again, but this time he is helping his sisters, and him doing this causes Rukia to get injured, him to save his sisters and Rukia. By getting Rukia's Reiatsu and getting his Shinigami powers, and once Ichigo does this, he proceeds to fight the Hollow and decimate it in seconds. And the moment for me, it's my number 5 spot because it's not the most exciting thing in the arc. It highlights key moments for Ichigo's character, like his ambition to protect his family and protect others, and his selflessness and his fear of not dying if it means protecting the ones he cares about. And of course, it's the origin of his powers. How could it not be a good moment? Number 4, Ichigo versus Odahime's brother. Now, for number 4, like I said, we do have Ichigo versus Odahime's older brother. So, in this fight, and why it's so good, is we see how much Ichigo cares for Odahime. They establish early on in the series that Ichigo has some sort of relationship with Odahime. It's friendship, but you see how Odahime acts and talks. She's interested in Ichigo. Now, Ichigo cares for Odahime in this fight, and we see how angry he gets when we see her get hurt. We see the idea of her being dead really makes Ichigo upset. So establishing some sort of connection between the two, and how he gets upset over her more than he has over literally anybody else other than his immediate family. Not only that, but we see Ichigo's thoughts on older brothers. Older brothers should protect their younger siblings and be the protector and care for them when parents aren't around. So, not only do we see this, but we also see over the course of the fight, Ichigo is improving subconsciously as a Shinigami. Just in general with his fighting skill and with the ability to subconsciously be able to walk in the air, evident when he gets hit by Odahime's brother and he slides in the air outside of the house. But what's even better is for this, Ichigo isn't the one to finish the fight, it's Odahime. She admits that what she did was wrong and that she shouldn't have neglected her brother as she did because it's what turned him into a hollow. However, she started to become happy again. She started to she never forgot her brother, but she started to stop praying to him because of the fact she'll always remember him with the gift that she got him, her earrings. But she was never upset or saddened after she stopped praying because she had friends to surround herself with, and the earrings helped her not forget him. And that is really good for her character, especially super early on in Bleach's story when they established the love interest, so to speak. And I really do love that how Tite Kubo does it, and I do think that it deserves my number 4 spot. Number 3, Ishin and Ichigo talk. So, after the fight with Grand Fisher, Ichigo realizes that he couldn't avenge his mother, and that he, regardless of how he felt, wanted revenge, but he couldn't achieve it. So, we see Ichigo standing in the rain over his mother's grave, apologizing to her that he wasn't able to avenge her. That is when Ishin shows up, Ichigo's father. Ishin proceeds to ask him, what is he doing here? Why is he standing all alone? And he tries to give Ichigo an umbrella, and of course we get the joking gag that Bleach has always been known for at the start of the series of them fighting. Ishin and Ichigo talk at Misaki's grave, and Ishin makes a comment after he meets up with Ichigo saying, "If you let her see your lively form like that, Mom will rest easy on the other side." Ichigo proceeds to say in his head that his dad doesn't know that his mom's soul is already gone. And he looks at his dad after thinking this and realizes his dad's smoking. And he asks him, "Didn't you quit smoking?" And his dad says, "She complimented me. Around the time we started dating, she said I looked cool with a cigarette in my hand." And he starts thinking about reminiscing on Misaki again, saying that was the only time your mom has complimented me on my looks. So every year on that day, he smokes. And Ichigo looks depressed, and even Kubo draws it like that. Again, another thing I love about Kubo is the facial expressions of the characters. Even in his early art style, which was a rough art style, we'll admit, still is really good. That's when Ichigo gets upset because Ishin says, "Don't look so sad. Didn't I just tell you to cheer up?" Then Ichigo breaks down saying, "Why? Why are you smiling? Why won't any of you blame me? I couldn't do anything, not a thing. Not when mom died, not now either. Why is no one blaming me?" And he's getting upset that he feels like he should be blamed, but nobody is. And that's when Ishin asks, "Why blame you? If I were to blame you, Masaki's death on you, Masaki would get mad at me. It's not anyone's fault that Masaki died. It's just that the woman I fell in love with was a woman who could die protecting her son." And to me, that is one of the hardest lines in Bleach because it hits you and it realizes that Ishin is a caring father who doesn't hate his son for the love of his life's death. He feels that if he hated Ichigo, it would be disrespecting Misaki and disrespecting the idea that he's a father, so he must protect his child regardless of anything. And he goes on to say, "You're the guy that the woman that I loved gave her life to protect." Which, for me, implies that he would do anything for Ichigo because Misaki loved him. He then proceeds to leave the gravesite and he says, "Live well, age well, go bald and die." After that, he then proceeds to say all this, and after that he says, "If I can't, I won't be able to face Misaki. Don't hesitate to act. Sadness is a cool thing to shoulder, but you're still too young." That's when Ichigo says to Rukia, because she was listening the entire time, "Whether it is not, please let me remain a Shinigami for a little while longer. I want to become more and more strong so he can finally kill him, because if not, he won't be able to face his mother." And the whole conversation gives development to Ichigo and further ideas for Ichigo's character, and gives Ishin finally a character after surprisingly 20 chapters of us not really having a solid character for Ichigo's father. And that, to me, deserves my number 3 spot on my list. Now, number 2 is probably surprising to a lot of people due to the fact that if you ever see anybody else's list of top 5 moments in the first arc or top 5 moments that are really good in the series or all this, they usually have this pretty high up or they have it as number 1. But for me, it's only number 2 because number 1 might be surprising to a lot of people. But number 2 is Byakuya and Renji showing up. Yeah, I know. The thing that flipped the entirety of the Bleach's story up to this point on its head, showing us 2 other Shinigami, and one we find out later, which is a captain, which is the strongest form of Shinigami that we know. Now, Ichigo, of course, has to fight them, but the reason why is because Rukia goes missing, and Kon knows what happens to her, that 2 mysterious guys shows up and takes her. Now, Uryu finds them and tries to challenge them. We never see the fight directly and exactly how it goes down, but we know when Ichigo shows up that Uryu's on the ground, and it obviously didn't go well for Uryu. So Ichigo, of course, challenges them and fights Renji. At first, he's getting beaten, and he then overpowers Renji, and that's when Renji decides to call upon his Zanpakuto. And Renji is confused when Ichigo says that Zanpakutos have a name. He then realizes Ichigo doesn't know that they have a name and that he is in the advantage here. That is when Ichigo kind of gets a power-up and attacks him and closes the gap. And that's when Byakuya steps in and cuts Ichigo down before he can even react. He breaks Ichigo's Zanpakuto and looks at him. Rukia then realizes the only way she can save Ichigo's life is if she goes with Byakuya. So of course she does. But Byakuya, thinking Ichigo is dead, so does Rukia, goes to leave. And Ichigo grabs him by the ankle and tries to fight him again, but then Rukia gets upset at him, saying he's not even worthy enough to touch his ankle. Ichigo's shocked by this, but realizes she's doing it to make sure he doesn't die. And that's when Ichigo finally succumbs to blood loss and passes out, and then we get a really iconic shot of Kisuke looking over Ichigo. The reason why this is number 2 is because of what happens with number 1 and the reasons why it's all really good in my opinion. And I do think that this being number 2 is a shock for a lot of people, but like I said, my reasoning for number 1 might make you realize that one of the scenes in this arc is actually extremely underrated, and I think we should get into it. And for now, this is number 2. Let's get into number 1. Now, number 1 is in fact Ichigo versus Grand Fisher. Now, this I know is kind of surprising as a number 1, but let me get into why I think it does deserve my number 1 spot on this list. Now, the start of the fight, Ichigo recognizes the spirit of the little girl that killed his mother, and once he sees it's attached to Grand Fisher like some sort of lure, he realizes that it was in fact Grand Fisher that killed his mother. So Ichigo, of course, gets enraged by this, and he wants to kill Grand Fisher. And so him and Grand Fisher proceed to have a pretty one-sided fight where Ichigo is at a complete disadvantage and Grand Fisher is completely stomping him. But regardless, Ichigo wants to take him one-on-one. Rukia tries to help Ichigo out, but Ichigo screams at her to not help him. This is his fight, don't interfere, because he wants to be the one to avenge his mother. Now, not only this, but so Ichigo and Grand Fisher keep having an epic battle, going back and forth. And Grand Fisher even calls him slow and proceeds to completely thrash him every which way. And Grand Fisher even mocks him into saying, "What's wrong? Why are you keep running? You can't wound me if you possibly keep running like that." And Ichigo even starts to freak out. He knows that his stamina is going to give out. At this rate, he's going to die. What is he thinking? But all he knows in this moment is that this guy killed his mother. The person that took Karin's moms away and Yuzu's moms away and took his father's wife. He wants to defeat him, protect his family, and defeat Grand Fisher. But Grand Fisher isn't having any of it. He calls him slow and says, "Don't get careless. Diving at your enemy's chest like this without a plan." And he proceeds to then stab Ichigo in his chest. Now, Ichigo is surprised by this, of course, because getting stabbed in your chest. He proceeds to collapse on the ground. But that's when then he gets back up and starts talking to Grand Fisher, saying he'll utterly kill him and defeat him. Even if his legs and arms are ripped off, he will defeat him. But that's when Grand Fisher changes his lure into a woman that looks the exact same as Ichigo's mother. Ichigo sees his mom and can't do anything. While this is happening, Kon then tells Rukia to go save Ichigo. She starts running towards the fight and sees the two. She sees Ichigo standing there not doing anything and reminiscing about all the fights that Ichigo's had. And for the first time since becoming a Shinigami, this is the first time he's fighting for himself. Winning this fight with her help, would he really be happy with that? Then Rukia gets a memory. We don't know of who, unless you watch the anime, because the anime shows us, and that's kind of why I don't like the Bleach anime that much, because they added scenes that were unnecessary and they cut things out. And for the manga, they don't add any scene here, so we don't know who is telling Rukia this. But he proceeds to tell him what becomes of pride. If you lend your power now, you will indeed save his life. However, at the same time, that will permanently kill his pride. And to fight to protect life and the fight to protect pride is what is most important for some people. And Rukia doesn't know what to do, so she doesn't interfere, and she wishes Ichigo not to die. Ichigo says he doesn't care if it looks like his mother, but he gets mad. But Grand Fisher throws Ichigo's mother in his face, and Ichigo doesn't stab her. Instead, Grand Fisher stabs him through the chest. But that's what Ichigo wanted all along. He proceeds to stab Grand Fisher in the shoulder and rip off his arm with his sword. Grand Fisher then proceeds to fall over, not beaten, but certainly incapacitated, and Ichigo is barely alive, holding on to himself, collapsing, and Grand Fisher proceeds to run away. He explains that both are his real body and that he can go inside the other if it means staying alive. But that's not all. After he runs away with the fight with Ichigo, we see after the talk with Ishin, like I mentioned for my number 3 spot, I wanted to keep this as technically for the Grand Fisher fight because it seems more connected. But we see 2 Arrancar. That's right, Arrancar. This was cut from the anime. Arrancar working on Grand Fisher and changing him into an Arrancar. And one of these Arrancar happened to be Grimmjow's subordinate. And so Grand Fisher gets changed into a Arrancar and says he wants a rematch. He will never lose to Ichigo again, and that basically would end the fight. Now you can see why this would be my number one. We have moments for Ichigo growing as a character, becoming selfish, which is negative traits for Ichigo, but it's still development as a character, and we have a really good fight to go along with it. Not only that, but we get the introduction of Iran cars, and we have little glimpses of what the story can go on from here. And for me, that's more important to the story than with the Byakuya fight. And I really do enjoy the first arc of Bleach, the Substitute Shinigami arc, and I do think it is very underrated. But for now, this is my top 5 moments in the Substitute Shinigami arc. Please go down below, like, subscribe, comment down below what are your favorite moments from the arc. And this is it. Signing off.